Hope is all we have, all we need on this journey. Love is what we give when we receive, so keep it burning. Gift your soul and let it be. Soon you'll find your gift of legacy. I'm ready to color my world, ready to give to you. I'm ready to color my world, ready to give to you.
Faith will keep you strong where you belong. Just believe it. Dreams to help you grow, to reap and sow. You receive it.
So gift your soul and let it be. Soon you'll find your gift of legacy. I'm ready to color my world, ready to give to you. I'm ready to color my world, ready to give to you.
Hello, everybody. Happy 5 months to Gift of Legacy. It's our 5-month anniversary today. I am so excited. So excited to be celebrating you, Mpho, and my wonderful to have you here again. Everybody was very excited and had such good feedback, and just seeing the faces last week Friday night while you were telling your story, even though we're not kids anymore, I saw that childlike wonder and enjoyment and just the fun and joy about it all. So that is wonderful, and I'm so happy that we are going to be doing it again tonight.
I am indeed.
How are you doing, Alan?
I'm great. Look at you two lovely ladies with those beautiful smiles. I'm really excited about this installment, if you will, as well, because I really did enjoy listening to Mpho last week. It was amazing. And as you all know, we've been speaking with, her name slips my mind, Linda, I believe it is. And, I was telling her my favorite thing is just learning the whole gift of legacy is just learning about other cultures around the world. And I had like this whole vision in my head going when she was saying my father used to tell us these stories. And it's probably, it's like when you read a book and then you see the movie and the book is always better than the movie because you had your own movie going. I had my own whole deal going. I was part of the family. I was hearing the stories. I was visualizing what was around me, all these wonderful things that good storytellers can pull out of you. So for sure, I am looking forward to this again this week.
Mpho, let's take it away, and then we can do what we did last week. Once you've told the story and the way that you beautifully related to GL and the wonderful personalities that we have, because I mean, do you know that nobody's fingerprint is exactly the same?
True.
So amazing.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Candz. Thank you very much. And a very good evening, good morning, whatever it is to all of you from wherever you're watching. So the first one this evening, it was actually inspired by Marnita on Monday. When she said, she saw a gift of legacy as a tool to be used, to get out of the situation where we are. So I thought, let me just quickly tell this one and make it as brief as possible. And it still has to do with our old friend Makwanyane. And those who were not, who didn't hear about Makwanyane, they will just have to listen to last week, Friday's presentation to get a full view of who Makwanyane was. But I thought to leave you with one of the best sides of Makwanyane this evening, just briefly, his commitment to the service of his King Moshoeshoe. Okay, so we'll remember that two things that he had were great speed and amazing levels of commitment to serving the king. So one year, as it were, Lesotho was invited to the Olympic Games in London, and Makwanyane was asked to accompany Team Lesotho. The king himself remained at home. Now, at the stadium, in London, Makwanyane watched with great interest the field events and saw how participants threw discus and javelin. And he realized that with each throw, the spectators clapped hands. So without any knowledge of the team members from Lesotho and for fear that he might be stopped, he went to the adjudicator's table and inquired regarding the purpose of throwing the game gadgets. He was particularly intrigued by the javelin. He wanted to know if the purpose was to throw the javelin as close as possible from where the players were standing. And then someone just said, come on, silly. Of course, the purpose is to throw the gadgets as far as possible from where the players are standing. The player who gets the longest distance is the winner. So Makwanyane pleaded to have a try just to get a feel of the game. And the adjudicators thought it wouldn't hurt. Firstly, they were on a short break. They themselves were intrigued by Makwanyane's traditional attire, which obviously was skins all over him. He looked very different from a lot of them in the stadium. They also thought this differently dressed man would be an absolute entertainment to the spectators just while they were enjoying the short break. So they gave him a javelin and they said, okay, you can throw this one. And our candidate took the javelin and did several what I will call near throws. I don't know if you can see me. You know, when you hold the javelin and you kind of feel it, you go like, let me see. So he had a few near throws. The first one, the second, and on the third one, he let the javelin go. It was a throw that left everyone gazing into the atmosphere with a gaping mouth as they simultaneously shouted, ah! Makwanyane's historical throw had the javelin over the stadium, and Makwanyane himself took a huge leap into the air following the javelin. Now you know that this is a story for sure. Now back home, the king and a few of his men were basking in the sun at the royal crawl when Makwanyane dropped from the sky and greeted the gatherings together with the king, and starting obviously with the king. Long live the king. Your servant saw a beautiful arrow in London, and the king can use to defeat all his enemies and preserve the peace in the kingdom. And your servant came to announce the arrival of the arrow in a few minutes from now, my lord. While the king and his men were still pondering about Makwanyane's sudden appearance and his story about the arrow, the javelin from London dropped from the sky, making a perfect landing in front of the king. Makwanyane then took a bow, took the javelin indeed, and presented it to the king with absolute pride. Here, my Lord, even as I told you, here is the arrow with which my Lord, the king, can defeat all his enemies and maintain peace in his kingdom. The king and his men were startled, to say the least. Makwanyane had abandoned Team Lesotho in London to present to his master what he thought more important than clapping hands to people who, in his understanding, had no throwing capabilities at all. So this is the end of the short story, just to end off the story of Makwanyane. And I thought, looking at how he viewed the javelin, what is your view of gift of legacy? Sitting in this call this evening, Makwanyane saw two things that we can talk about this evening. First, he saw people who were not doing their best with some valuable tool, The tool was in their hands, but they were not doing much out of it. Their effort was so small that he thought the purpose of the game was to play small, Secondly, he saw a misplaced, underutilized, valuable tool that could achieve greater results than people sitting down and clapping hands. He saw a much more befitting task for which the javelin could be used, because to him, it was not a javelin, it was a weapon of mass destruction. Then he did something about it. Okay. I hope that all of us in this call of Gift of Legacy this evening indeed see Gift of Legacy as a tool that we can use to defeat our economical enemies and release abundance for ourselves and those around us. That was just by the way. It was, as I said, inspired by Martina's talk on Monday when she said, we can all look at Gift of Legacy as a tool in our hand. And I remembered this story, which you can clearly hear that is a bit modernized. It talks about games in London, but that is part of the stories that now we told each other as youngsters in the evenings after dinner. Okay. So I don't know if there are any comments on that one before I take the main story for this evening.
I love that, Mpho, because it's so true. Everybody looked at that as a javelin and he came back with a weapon of mass destruction. Now, I don't want to call Gift of Legacy a weapon of mass destruction, but it is the most beautiful tool. And I like the word mass because it's massive and it can make a massive difference in your life. But it's like having a chainsaw and having a tree that you want to cut down. You can have the best chainsaw in the world, but if you don't pick it up and use it to cut the tree, what good is it? And that's Gift of Legacy. Totally. I mean, if you just join and you're going to sit back and wait, that's like having your chainsaw in your garage when you've got to cut the tree. So yeah, it's definitely the most beautiful tool that I've ever come across. And just in the last 5 months, seeing how many lives have been changed. I've seen more lives changed in the last 5 months than I have in the last year that I was in the gifting economy. And that just brings so much warmth to my heart and speaks so much volume, where the javelin is so much more.
Yeah, I agree. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say the mass destruction, look at it this way, that a lot of us, I think especially in Africa, I'll speak about my own culture because that is the one I know best. Once I have made money to take care of my needs, those people around me benefit from that. So there are a lot of things that I am destroying with that. And for me, and again, I will say it, I work in the community, ladies and gentlemen, and I see the loss of human dignity that poverty brings. I grew up in poverty myself, and when you are able to feed somebody, to feed yourself and feed somebody, take a child to school and give them decent education. For me, that is mass destruction. I mean, you're doing one good here and then it overflows, it touches the next person. And, not even necessarily your relatives. So for me, I'm excited by that mass destruction part. You know what I mean? Yeah, I wanted to say that, Alan. Yes.
Yeah. So what I was going to say is this, the view of what this is so very important in the way that people verbalize what this is and the effects that it can have on their personal communities and all of those things. It's such a super important lesson because, last night, of course, Thursday nights in our community here in the US, I do a presentation when you guys are all hopefully having dreams of abundance, right? It's pretty darn late at night. So in any event, it was interesting that I must have been feeling the vibration coming across the globe because I talked about the view of how you view this thing and what this looks like. And the main reason is here in the US, about 15 times a day, some new opportunity, some new MLM, some new network marketing, some new leveraged income model will come across your desk once you're in that community. And I'm no different, right? And we always look at those things in a certain way where this is kind of the message I was trying to send. This is not that. Okay, this isn't, we're community building, we're not team building for personal gain. And that's a big deal to try and get out of the heads of people that have been, quite frankly, inundated with everything that isn't gift of legacy. So you have to, sort of shape a new narrative for them or a new view that, hey, when you tell your friend about this, when you tell a person you care about this, it's truly for them. It's not so that you can get a new auto ship, so that you're now increasing your volume so that your family is gaining from it. Sure. But, we're all involved in this to eradicate whatever it is that we want to eradicate in the way that we do that. In your case, the poverty that you see each and every day, the loss of dignity and so on and so forth. But for some, and I made a post on Facebook yesterday that I would not typically post. I don't get political, but I did post something because I was just flabbergasted that I paid $109 for a tank of gas. And then some folks from Australia that I'm friends with came on and said that would have cost you 215 Aussie dollars if you would have bought it here. So what does that say? That says this: gift of legacy is a tool. And your view of this tool needs to be to offset some of this insane economies that we have worldwide right now, because we're in some sort of a narrative, that's from the twilight zone in my mind. I mean, it's just crazy. I've been around a long time. I'm 63 years old. I've seen a lot of different things, right? Some I was paying attention to and some I wasn't. But for a long time now, I've kept myself abreast of economic events worldwide. And it isn't just here, it's everywhere. So even if you're not talking about making $10,000 a month every month, every penny that we can get people to see in their bottom lines are going to be a help from them. And the only way to do that is to change their view of what this is so that they understand patience and they understand what we have our hands on and that it is a tool to help them. And I love that about this. It's great. It's great. It was a great story. I loved it.
Okay. Next story, Candz.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
So tonight we look at Mushangana Sankatana, and this is again the one that was told us by my father. Long time ago, in a faraway village, lived a very happy community. People worked together in harmony and cared for each other, as was a practice in all the villages in Lesotho. One day, while everyone was preparing to go to bed, a huge creature, which came to be known by the name Khodumodumo, a creature that no one had ever seen, it came into the village and began to swallow people and their livestock. The more the creature swallowed, the more it wanted. Soon people were running for dear lives, but the monster caught up with them, except for one pregnant lady who miraculously managed to hide herself under a very strangely placed rock. Because of the shape of the rock, Khodumodumo could not get his huge head underneath the rock. After trying several times, he decided to rather give up on the one prey which, was proving difficult to catch and rather chase after those who were readily accessible. Thus, the pregnant lady was saved from the greed of Kgodumodumo. After a while, the village that once roared with activity was as silent as a grave. There was no stamping of the feet, no children playing in the streets. The builder's tools were silent. The village market was empty. With his tummy full to capacity, Kgodumodumo began to move away from the village. On a third day or so, his feet could not carry him anymore. He settled down and he ended up falling asleep. Back at the village, Our Ladyship gave birth, not only because it was time, but because the recent events shocked her otherwise secure uterus to open up and give way to a bouncing baby boy. She was both happy and very sad. She had a baby boy, all right, but how were they going to survive the village life without any company and no resources at all? What about if that monster Kgodumodumo could return and get to them and swallow them as well? As heavens would have it, the boy began talking with his mother immediately after birth. Mother, what is my name? And the mother says, your name is Mushanyana Sankatana, my boy. Mother, how come there are only two of us in this place? Where is the rest of the community? Kgodumodumo, my son, a huge creature came into this community and greedily ate up all the people, young and old, all the animals and beasts that we had. Only I was left. Mother, I shall go and find that monster and kill him. I shall go and revenge for the cruel act that he has done. No, my child, you are only a boy. No, mother, I am a man. I shall go. You stay here and wait for me. I will return victorious and both of us will live happily after that, because we will know that that monster Kgodumodumo will be dead. He will not come and bother us again. I'm getting emotional, actually. I'm actually getting emotional. Mushanyana Sankatana then found a knife and a sword and he began his journey. After a day or so, Sankatana saw a huge structure and wondered if that was perhaps Kgodumodumo he was looking for. His heart beat fast in anticipation. When we Basotho are happy or sad, we sing to celebrate or to encourage ourselves. And so it was with our young man. He burst into a song. Kiona ela Kgodumodumo, Kiona ela Kgodumodumo, ya eja setšhaba ya se qeta Kgodumodumo, ya siya Mushanyana Sankatana Kgodumodumo, Kiona ela Kgodumodumo. On or about the fourth day, he was close enough to see the monster. He was still exhausted and fast asleep. Sankatana approached from behind and made his first cut on the body of the Kgodumodumo. As far as he was concerned, he was striking to kill. To his surprise, though, he heard a screaming of a person. Ichu! He then knew it was possible people were all alive in the belly of this big monster. He tried again elsewhere, this time very careful so that he would not hurt anyone like he did with his first cut. Still, he heard a sound, a different sound this time. Ooh-ha! It was a horse. Yet another time it was moo, and it was a cow this time. Sankatana fought with big courage, but with a lot of care. And then he bled the monster to death. But he was extremely careful. Even though he was careful, he himself got a few very deep cuts and he bled quite some. But still he emerged triumphant against the Kgodumodumo. Everyone came out of the belly of the monster Everyone was happy. They began their journey back to the village with their livestock, celebrating in song. It wasn't long back at the village, and Sankatana was crowned the chief of the village. He led his people into peace and prosperity, honoring his mother as well. And in Sesotho, we would say, "Ke tshomo ka matheto." If there is a Mosotho listening, they will know that I am saying, and that is the end of the story. So let's look at the story. Who is this huge Kodumodumo in our current age? You know, I got a bit emotional telling the story because I actually, you know, engaged with my father telling us that story and enjoyed the beauty of it. And I could hear his voice, I could hear him singing, you know, but I also engaged with the poverty that I am describing in where we grew up and where we are working in this period, actually. I want to propose that the Kodumodumo is our current economic system. So much of the world is captured by the current economic system where the rich keep getting richer and the poor keep getting poorer. The saddest part for me is that very little opportunity is given to the poor to get out of their poverty. In fact, initiatives like the gift of legacy are frowned upon as Ponzi schemes and as fake. I am not denying that there are fake ones out there. There are Ponzi dangerous schemes out there, but I am talking about the intentional frowning upon genuine initiatives in order to keep the poor poorer. The demonizing of such initiatives as a gift of legacy and the suppression and casting out of such initiatives by those who claim to protect the poor while they are actually taking care of their greedy stomachs. Let me make what I believe is a crucial point here by deviating a little and telling you a very short story, not from Lesotho this time, but from Israel. Here is King David. He is the richest person in the kingdom. He has as many wives as he wants, large amounts of silver and gold. He lives in a beautiful palace. What more can he want? In his moment of idleness in the kingdom, when his army is at war, he takes a wife of his trusted men who is away from home and fighting to protect the nation. David gets the wife of this man pregnant, and then he kills her husband so that he can marry her. Wow. His God gets upset with him and sends him a prophet to rebuke him. The prophet tells David a story of a rich man who, when he has guests in his house, instead of using his own resources to entertain the guests, he takes from a poor man in his village the most precious of his resources, and he entertains his guests. David tells the prophet that such a man deserves death. He actually says, I want that man put to death. And here is the point in David's story. He is so consumed and taken up by his error that he does not identify himself in the illustration of the prophet. He doesn't even see that this could be me, you know? So such are the people who are consumed in the era of the current economical situation. They do not, if you talk to them, actually, a sentence gets in through this ear and gets out through that the next ear. Now, for me, even if, I dare say, even if gift of legacy would collapse, which I don't believe it will, but even if that happened, I will remain believing that we absolutely need a different economic system if all the people in the globe should achieve economic viability. Either we will join together for an ecological civilization in the next few years, or we will become extinct. This is a slide or a code that has become part of us in this community, as it is shared every time there is a presentation made on the premises of Gift of Legacy. I want to read it again. Either we will join together for an ecological civilization in the next few years, or we will become extinct. This is Evan Lazolo. Hey, this name is difficult. And he said this in 2014 at a conference where they were talking about such things. We need community-driven initiatives like Gift of Legacy. Again, I repeat, community-driven initiatives. We need support and not criticism. We who are already in GL must work together to make sure that this initiative is what it claims to be. And this is my honest plea to all of us, new and old. I think and hope that some people here are new, maybe attending our meeting for the first time. Should you want to come in, we plead with you, hold our hands and let's run together and make a gift of legacy, a community that we can all be proud of, living a big legacy for those that will come after us. And I want to stand here, to pause here a little and take some comments from my colleagues.
You know, it's so interesting. Like Ellen said earlier, you know, he was in the same vibration of what you were speaking about with your first story. And yeah, this is something that's very interesting to me as well. And how in the beginning I took things so seriously, and now I see certain things and I'm like, that doesn't even affect us. It's such a small little, you know, little chip. And I talk about, when we speak about Gift of Legacy, we speak about, I just lost my train of thought completely. But when you're talking about sacred economy and how some people that are so involved in the economy that's on the news, and that's what I was going to say. We always talk about Gift of Legacy as being off the mainstream. And for me, very much so, you know, mainstream media controls a narrative. I mean, you can go completely down the rabbit hole with that, but I'm sure that most of you that are here have seen that there's something wrong in the system, and you're looking for alternatives. So we'll leave it at that. But other people that you may speak to are so engrossed in, you know, the magic that the media has on us, that they are almost comfortable being in their struggle. They'd rather remain in their struggle than actually following their hearts and taking a chance and just taking $100 and seeing if this will work. And a lot of the roadblocks that they put in front of themselves are the negative articles that are out there. And I mean, the first article that was out there came out, it was a YouTube article and or YouTube video, where a guy was actually trying to sell his own story at the end. But Gift of Legacy hadn't even been launched yet. I think we were still 2 months away from launching, and that negative article came out. And I read that one. That was the first one and the only one I read. And I got so upset. And then I made the fatal mistake of trying to battle this monster on mainstream media. And I got a whole lot of the community to write in and give their comments and their testimonials. And people wrote beautiful things. They really did. And this guy completely took like 1 or 2 lines of a massive paragraph. He edited it, and then he completely slated the poor person that was trying to defend Gift of Legacy. Now, in me thinking I was doing a good deed, he obviously enjoyed attacking more people that were defending our beautiful community. But at the same time, because of the engagement that we had on Google with this guy, he was like the top page or number 1 on a Google search because of the engagement from our own community. But people that want to show you those articles, you know, you can do 2 things about that. You can prepare them when you're telling them about Gift of Legacy, because you're going to send them that video as the teaser. And I always say you're going to want to Google this, but just remember where we're going with this, and remember what Google's going to show you, because Google is very much mainstream media. And if your people want to believe Google or articles that are negative without trusting you, thank Google and the mainstream media, because they kind of like weeding the garden before you actually get them to join, and you have to worry about them putting even more roadblocks up there. So yeah, that's what I have to say about that, because don't ever let the negative articles dominate the beautiful thing that we have here, because ultimately you've got to follow your heart. And if you want to do research and only look at Google and not the beautiful smiles that we have from receiving and going through this beautiful program, then maybe you're not ready for it yet, and you're going to be comfortable in your struggle for a little bit longer.
Well, you just opened up a can that I promise not to open the rest of the way, because you and I are thinking a lot alike in this way. But I'll just say this, the narrative, it's there. Okay, the agendas, they're there. No matter what you believe, no matter which side of a political fence you may ride on, they're there. Doesn't matter. It's the way things are done. For fortunate or unfortunate, it's just too hard to wrap your head around. I'll stop it with this. It's called television for a reason, because it tells a vision, and it's not yours. And what the world really lacks, and what I like about everything here, is we lack critical thinkers. People are determined to let tools like Google make their mind up for them, because I've always used to say this a lot, and I'll just leave it at this. Send me your picture, and in 20 minutes, I can put a website up that disparages you from head to toe. Your family, your family's family, everybody's family, and none of it will be true. But someone will read it and think that it is. So you guys, Google, not a research tool. Think for yourself, be a critical thinker. Look at what's around you. When you look at Candz, when you look at Mpho, when you look at a lot of these folks that were, Valissa, one of my favorite human beings, when you look at these folks, are you for real if you're thinking that these are people that are set out with any kind of a nefarious mindset? Think critically, think on your own. And like Candz just said, choose what's right for you from the heart. I say it all the time. If this is the wrong thing for you, bless your heart. I wish you best in all the endeavors that you ever pursue in your life. Do not get, sideways with people, because this may not be their cup of tea. It's fine. But I promise you, we could go down that television thing and the narratives for the next 10 hours, and I wouldn't get tired of talking about it, because I'll spare everybody my opinions. But I think you're spot on the money.
I say one-on-one. In fact, when I talk about a gift of legacy, I said, you can go to Google and you will hear all sorts of comments there, good and bad. Sure. But gift of legacy is one-on-one. So I want you to engage with me. Everybody has a right to open their mouth and say anything. And people will always have their own opinion. But engage with me. Let me talk to you about it at a personal level. Then you can take it from there. Yes, and because I'm not trying to convince you, I am telling you a story. I cannot unknow what I know. I know what I have been able to achieve through Gift of Legacy. And I know why I joined Gift of Legacy. I criticize, I am always scrutinizing, I'm always examining things, and this, I will show you how I examined it. And then if you also see my point, then you will take it. It's up to you. I was just sharing with you that I took it, and if you like it, you do. If you don't, fine. Like you, Alan, I say, bless your heart. All the best with whatever you will choose, but this is what I have chosen for myself at this point.
Exactly. And I mean, I love doing a little bit of research, make no mistake, but I look in all different places. I don't rely on one source, and I go from one end of the spectrum to the other, and then hopefully find the middle ground as being the truth. But ultimately, in your heart, your knowing is your knowing, and that's been with you for your whole life. So
yeah, I agree with you there. So the research that I do is real research, and I'm sure everybody does, with their version of what real research is. but I actually contact people that I respect. Okay. And people, I've been blessed that people respect me well enough that they're willing to listen to a conversation because they know I'm not going to try and cram a square peg in a round hole. But people that I respect, that I know that have been successful, or maybe other people that may be in the community, before this came about in my life, there was a bunch of phone calls that took place. And, then I was able to come up with my own. I never even looked on Google. The very first time was about 30 days after I was in, and somebody said, what about this article about someone in our community? I'm like, for real? Are you for real right now? I go, you can't pay attention to that. And that's where I use my, send me a picture and your birth date and I'll wreck your life in 10 minutes. I mean, I used to be a, web developer. So, but it's like, you can't, that's not research, gang. It's not. So I love contacting people that I respect and getting their opinion on something. But even then, my own opinion, my own critical thinking will outweigh that. But it is part of a recipe that I have in determining when I'm going to, get involved in something or not. And I'll tell you what, when it came to Gift of Legacy, I can say without any fear of contradiction, there was not anything wrong or disparaging or negative or anything that anyone that I contacted had to say about it. So, it was a pretty darn easy decision. And that is when I'm reaching out to people, I've told the story from last week about how Mpho's brain is tuned in on how to help someone. You guys understand that view of what this is? It's being tuned in on how can I help you, not how can you help me? Okay, that's a totally different flip of the switch. And when your head goes there, you will intently listen to the conversations. You will be present when people are speaking with you or when you meet someone new. And they, through whatever means, not because you're trying to dig it out, but because they admit that they have a challenge, and whether or not we have a tool that can help them, your life will change. It will be so easy to introduce this to people because you're introducing it from the right place and you know that it can help them if they will do what? Be like-minded, like-hearted, and pick up the chainsaw. That's my new thing. You got to pick up the chainsaw, baby. That's for sure.
And send it to our Telegram group. We've got a Gift of Legacy testimonial group. There are hundreds of people. And they're real people. You can see that they're not paid actors, and there's too many of them to have paid anyway. So get into that group. It's beautiful. It's so uplifting. I just love that group. When I see that it's been open, I mean, we can only open it every now and then because we have to monitor it. But wow, the beautiful stories that are shared there. It's really, just send them there. And that will far outweigh, the impact that anything from Google or any of those mainstream media outlets can convince people. And people that are still very much into mainstream, they're not my people to bring to Gift of Legacy. My personal opinion, but they're not my people.
Yeah. Okay, just before we leave Mshangana Sankatana, there were a few things that I wanted to say here, and the two of you have mentioned it, a bit of research. We are well-informed people, we are not trying to say people should come in without thinking or without being informed, doing a bit of research out there, or a lot of research actually. Sankatana inquired about the status quo and he got a full explanation from his mom. That was the only source of, obviously the only source of information that he had at that time. But he actually made an inquiry and he began his journey with full understanding that he was not facing a small challenge. So everybody is allowed to research as much as they want, to bring their questions and concerns. Many times I actually ask after people have asked me questions, I say, do you have any concerns? Because I want us to clear everything. And I'm not saying my clarity will bring the same clarity to you, but I'm happy to share it with you so that you can and make your own decision. Now, once he sees the size of the monster from far, he begins to encourage himself, and he does that until he gets to the place and starts fighting. He taps into his inner power. Those who have read about the Jewish king that I mentioned, King David, they will also know that David did some amazing things for his nation under very difficult circumstances. And a lot of his success, actually all of his success, was his ability to encourage himself in his God. It is actually recorded in their literature that he was able to encourage himself in his God. That was a beautiful aspect of King David once he had repented from his errors. That was a beautiful aspect of Mushangana Sankatana, who kept encouraging himself. I just sang it for a short while, but he sang the song throughout his journey, as we were told the story. Okay, so let us encourage ourselves. And then from the errors, where he was trying to kill the monster, and then he had some people that were already swallowed by the system, if I can put it. Here, I want to encourage all of us, those that are in the forefront. Candz, I know that you took a lot of, what shall I call it, from so many of us, but it was not easy. But you stood so that the gift of legacy is where it is today. So, and I want to say, those that are in the forefront, really keep encouraging yourselves with understanding that you're dealing with and working with a lot of people out there with different backgrounds. And I plead with all of us as well that we will be patient with each other and understand that, we are from different backgrounds. And again, what I'm saying is nothing new, but I think it is good that we say it this evening and in this platform. Okay, let us silence the negative voices that are working to pull us down. There are enough of them out there. We do not want to create them now from within. A lot of effort is taken every week to strengthen us, to equip us, and to guide us. If anything does not resonate with you, gracefully put it aside and take those things that resonate with you. Build yourself, build your momentum, and let's go. Let's fly together.
Beautiful.
15 minutes. Can I tell one more story? Yes, I can tell one more story.
Yes,
And
yes,
then do the conclusion. Swimming pool. The stories are getting a bit more modern. Now, here is a story of a rich king who had a beautiful daughter. The king was worried about the prospective suitors of his daughter. He wondered how he could ascertain that the successful suitor would be marrying his daughter for who she was and not for the riches of her father. After a while, he thought of a plan. He would order a big number of sharks and throw them into his swimming pool, because he had a big swimming pool in the premises of his palace. He would then call all the young men old enough to marry his daughter to come and visit him. Anyone who would be brave enough to throw himself into the swimming pool and have skill enough to outswim all the sharks that were in the swimming pool, that man would be his son-in-law. So the day came, and as heavens would have it, the turnout was great and the weather was beautiful. The king came out to meet the young men and began to explain the game, All the men stood around the swimming pool and exclaimed about the hostility of the sharks, because, they were swimming in the swimming pool and, looking very hostile. While the king was still explaining, a huge splashing sound was heard and the whole place went dead quiet. A young man was swimming frantically among the sharks, which were also doing their utmost best to catch him. In a few minutes, he was out of the swimming pool. The king began to move towards him with awe, to shake his hand and congratulate him, But this young man moved among his peers. He was almost mad. And he was angrily shouting, "Who pushed me into the swimming pool? Who pushed me. And that is the end of the story. That is the end of the story. Sometimes it is the unplanned and uncontrollable situations in our lives that push us into doing the unthinkable. I have no idea how come you, my sister or my brother, how you came into this community. Some of us are here because we had to swim for dear life. I will never forget the amount of money that I owed the banks when I met Gift of Legacy. The hunger and the scarcity faced us squarely, and we had to find a means of getting out of the situation. In this story, Gift of Legacy is not a swimming pool full of hostile sharks. It is your past. That swimming pool is where you were, circumstances that were in that swimming pool. That is definitely my story. I was in danger and I needed to come out. I did not know how, but a friend caused me to swim out of that miserable pool, and now I'm working with success. Sooner than later, the princess will be my wife, and I will be the son-in-law of the king. You are here now tonight. My plea is for you to have fun, enjoy the benefits. The person who led you here loved you enough to do so. I want to echo what Alan said. When we bring you into this community, it is not for us to get a benefit out of you. It is for you. This is not a multi-level marketing where there is commission. I do not get a rand or a dollar because I brought you in. It is an opportunity that I am saying it is for you. Come and build community with me. Let's grow the community together. In conclusion, I want to end by taking all of us through some of the advertising mottos that I have enjoyed over the years here in South Africa. We had one, I don't even know if it is still there because I don't watch TV anymore because I've got much more important things that I'm focusing on now. My whole take is watching TV is watching people making their money, on me. So I would rather spend my time out there doing something for myself. But Standard Bank used to say, we're looking ahead so that you are not left behind. I loved that. And I really want to say, in this community, we are looking ahead so that none of us is left behind. It is said that there are 3 types of people on earth: those who make things happen, those who watch things happen, and those who wonder what happened. Let's therefore go to Nedbank and choose to make things happen. That is the motto of one of our banks here in South Africa: make things happen. And with Ford, we say, go further. In South Africa, I don't know, I know Ford is an American company. I don't know what they say in the United States, but here they say, go further. If you want to go further, take a Ford. Mitsubishi says, go bolder, be bold, and you will make it. And let's go with Nike and just do it with Absa in this community today, tomorrow, together, and forever. Thank you for listening.
You are awesome.
Absolutely amazing. Fantastic. Yeah. And sure, just so cool. I'm sure we've got a really great one for Gift of Legacy. Making dreams come true every single day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Every single day.
I don't have the exact stats because this week I went up to Joburg on very short notice to go and meet some wonderful new developers that we're bringing in that are going to just help us with, the maintenance and all of the things that we need to keep Gift of Legacy on 24/7 and working in milliseconds when you click a button and you go through to the next page very quickly. I can't believe how much work just goes into that little function. It's absolutely incredible. What I've learned in the last year, you know, being involved in the co-creation of Gift of Legacy, I never would have thought in a million years that I would even understand what people were talking about. And yesterday in the meeting, still had difficulty understanding what they were talking about, but you know, Chris has got that wonderful saying where you're consciously unaware, and he's got all the other ones which I can't remember now. And slowly but surely we're going through the different levels where we will be pros very soon. But in the last month, we've had about 45,000 people join us just in the last month, which is absolutely amazing. And I will prepare some stats and get them out over the weekend. But I mean, just in the last month, to know that we've had 40,000 people. We're currently at 364,647 active participants in our beautiful program. And that has happened in a matter of 5 months. I mean,
wow.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when we were talking about migration, and in the end, when we finally closed migration, we had about 7,900 people that we'd migrated over. And we were just aiming for like 20, 30,000, so that, you know, that's what we needed to keep the wheels going. And obviously from that, we would have needed 60,000, from that 120. And in 5 months, just to see this growth, yeah, you guys are amazing. And I mean, without you, we wouldn't be here, because everybody brings two and make sure that they understand the process and they can do the same. And it's that simple. I've seen so many strategies that people send us, and I get so confused. And I'm like, I thought I knew what was going on in the way that I understand how the program works. And people just love to overcomplicate things when you really don't have to. It really is as simple as we say. And the more people keep to the simplicity of how it works, the better their success is.
Let me piggyback that real quick, because I think it's a super important point to make. All right. It is a simple system. It is the simplest system that I've ever seen. So over here in the States, and I think a little bit worldwide, there's a sport called baseball that we all sort of love. And once in a while, the greatest hitters in the game go into a batting slump. They just can't seem to make contact with the ball. So what do? They go back to the cage and they go back to the fundamentals. So the fundamentals of Gift of Legacy are very simple. Find two like-minded people who are willing to do the same, help them do that, show them around the back office or the, you know, the boards, whatever, there is no back office, the boards, so that they understand where, you know, the academy is, and coach them along. Make sure that you bring them along to enough events that they now have their own sort of modus operandi, how they're going to run their particular boards and experience through the journey. And that's it. That's as simple as it is. It doesn't need to get any more complex. I'm like you, Candz. I mean, you can turn this thing into, you know, rocket science if you want to. But at the end of the day, when you make the phone call that says, my boards aren't moving, there's always one reason. If I go look at a board, I can just see someone has not brought their two.
Yes.
And that, my friends, is the fundamental of how this thing goes. And so just come back to the simplest form and it will rock. It will absolutely rock. So I love that. That's for sure. True.
Alan, you remind me, you know, I have my children love sport. Can you hear me? My children really love sport, soccer. So I used to watch soccer a lot. And part of what we would see is when a coach goes with the players into the field, you know, for training. And what really intrigued me is that he would hold a soccer ball and say, gentlemen, this is a soccer ball.
Exactly.
I mean, talking to the people who, I mean, like, yeah, well, we all know that. I'm just saying we need to be reminded, to remind ourselves every time as we speak to one another. Gentlemen, this is a soccer ball. Those two poles that you see there, they are called goals. And our aim is to kick this round thing past the opponents and get it through. And then we will have what is called a goal. So ladies and gentlemen, this is gift of legacy. And each one is just asked to bring 2 people who will each bring 2 people who will each bring 2 people who will each bring 2 people perpetually. Not only are our gifts perpetual, but our invitations are also perpetual.
And I mean, how can you not share this?
I mean, really.
I just want to go back to old paradigm versus my vision and where we're going with the new paradigm. Old paradigm, and I never really had too much experience with it because, you know, coming from the hair and beauty industry, there's only so far up you can go before you own your own business. But in corporate, you know, or MLM or network marketing, you've got your levels. You start at the bottom and you work your way up. And I used to hear people saying, oh, I manage teams of hundreds of people or thousands of people. I mean, Hercules comes from a background of managing thousands of people. Do you know how stressful that is? Oh my goodness, I just had to manage, I think the biggest my staff compliment was at my salon was about 15 people. I was a nervous wreck. I hardly slept at night. My monkey mind was just going absolutely crazy. And now you've got people that come into Gift of Legacy with that mindset. And yes, it probably does create momentum, but you don't have to manage hundreds of people. All you need to do is look after your 2 and make sure that they look after their 2. It's going again back to the simple thing of the soccer ball. You don't need to manage hundreds of people. Why would you want to do that? Why would you want to do that when we don't have to? We don't have to work hard any longer. We don't have to just survive. We can thrive. And if you get this right and you just communicate and you check in with your people and your boards every day, that's about as much work as you really need to do.
That's it.
That's true.
Well, I think on that note, Mpho, it's been such an honor and a pleasure. And hopefully we can get you back to tell us more stories. And hopefully you've inspired our other cultures, because I mean, in South Africa, we've got 22 different languages. So let's get all our other cultures to come and share their stories and how they relate to Gift of Legacy. But Ellen and I have always got so much to talk about, and it's so interesting how during the week there's little things and little events that happen within the community. And Ellen's in the States, I'm in South Africa. We don't really chat during the week, maybe once or twice, and yet all of the things that we experience and we link up to talk about on a Friday are current events that are actually happening with Gift of Legacy.
Yep. I love this call. I really do appreciate you having me on it for sure.
Oh,
it's fantastic.
So yeah.
Last 2 weeks have been my favorite 2 weeks too. That's been amazing.
Absolutely.
We forget how important stories are, and they're great. They're so relatable. They're wonderful.
And I mean, if you think of just the energy that happens if you think of how you started feeling when she started telling the story, you actually start relaxing, your heart opens up, and you are more susceptible to an invitation. Mm-hmm. So when you want to talk to somebody about this and you get all contracted and nervous and worried about judgments and going to all the expectations and projections, just remember about how relaxed you felt hearing the stories, and maybe try and tell your own story, because then you're just telling a story. You're not trying to sell something. And like Hercules said earlier, we're not in the business of convincing. We're in the business of sharing.
For sure.
All right, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Happy 5 months. I can't wait to see what's going to happen in the next 5 months. And as I always like to say, how does it get better than this? And what else is possible that we never even imagined that could happen? And it never ever turns out like we want. I mean, it never ever turns out the way we want, but our dreams always come to us in some form or another. And the more you carry on and the more you share this, the closer you are coming to your dreams. And remember what Mpho said, this is a tool, that chainsaw. Pick up that chainsaw and start sawing, and you'll do so well. And once you get the first two, it's so easy after that. It really is. All right,
thank you,
Bye,
Pauline.
everybody.
Bless you.
Tsunami of
Love
love.
you.
Bye.
See ya. Bye.
Ta-da.